Today's real estate number you should know is 683,000. That's the number of new single family homes that were sold in the United States in 2024. And welcome into the First Time Keys podcast. Your host, Adam McAllister. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of the day. And again, I appreciate you making this part of your listening schedule. Always appreciate you being here. And again, joining us on this journey, both with me kicking off this podcast. We're now at episode 13. So we're now at the baker's dozen. And for you, on the journey of becoming a first-time home buyer, and super excited to be part of your journey. Don't forget, if you are ready to get started and you want to get rolling and you're like, hey, Adam, I think it's time, shoot me a message and let's get you started. So whether it's here in South Central PA or anywhere in the United States, always happy to get you rolling and get you connected and get you started. All right, what's going on? Well, I guess I'll start with this. Yesterday was kind of a crappy day. And I hate to start the show with some negativity, but there's a silver lining. Yesterday I had folks, not first-time home buyers. In fact, these are folks that have bought many a home and relocating here to the area. And so they've been out looking, and finally yesterday they found the home. Or I should say 2 days ago, they found the home. And we went ahead, put the offer on it, and then things were looking really good. And then yesterday morning, as we're trying to kind of finalize things and get things moving, another offer had come in. Now we're in a multiple offer, which is happening again. And then we were actually waiting to hear back if there was a third offer coming in. Long story short, we didn't get the house. My folks put forward a phenomenal offer. I mean, they really did a great job with the offer that they had submitted. And unfortunately, we lost out to an offer that had waived every inspection, including the septic inspection, which my folks were not willing to do. And I advised them not to do it. So the good news is they're going to get another home. They're going to get their house, and one where they don't have to give up all their leverage and reveal or remove all their protection. So when you're out there in this market and you're in a competitive spot, you got to hold tight to your principles. And I'm never going to tell someone not to have a septic inspection. There's just too many things. There's too many variables. Anything in a home inspection inside of a house, we can see a lot of things. Anything that's exposed, we can take a look at. And this home was in great shape. A lot of updates. Everything was exposed down in the basement. So there weren't any real major concerns. So we weren't worried about the home inspection. Termite wise, not really concerned about it. Because again, a lot of that stuff is visible. But when it comes to the septic system, number one, it's underground and you can't see it. And so therefore it's sort of, we know one's there. Yes, they had it pumped just a couple years ago. But without removing the lids and getting it pumped, we don't know if there's any underlying issues there. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with standing on your principles and going, hey, we're willing to go to here to get the house, but we're not willing to cross the Rubicon to go to here where we're uncomfortable. And now looking back going, hey, in 6 months from now, a year from now, were they going to have a septic issue? Don't know. And that's the big piece of it. So again, when you're out there, have that list of red lines, so to speak, those lines that you're just not willing to cross to get your home. And there's, again, nothing wrong with it. So be true to you, be true to your principles, know where your hard red lines are, and you will get your house. So there's always someone out there who is willing to go to crazy town, and you can't, you can't predict crazy. All you can do is go with where you're comfortable at, and hope for the best. And in the meantime, I'll do everything I can to give us every competitive advantage without taking away all your leverage and your protection. So, Congratulations to the soon-to-be new owners. Happy for them. Really, really wish my folks would have gotten the house. It was a really, really neat house. If you go to my TikTok, it was the latest video, or would be one of the latest videos that's on my TikTok that shows the front of it. Beautiful setting, like 5 minutes away from where I grew up at in Southern York County. So anyway, we'll get back out there. We'll get them another house. We'll get them their house and move on. So what's today's show about? Well, so you've gotten through and we've hammered on lending and getting pre-approved and knowing your finances. In fact, we've hit it so hard, you're probably going, Adam, my God, can we talk about something other than lending and financing? And for you, yes, yes, we are. So we've also talked about, choosing your agent, and we've got a little bit more to add to that. But today's show is all about, do you buy a new home, meaning new construction, or do you buy a resale home? That's right. It's the age-old debate. Do you want a home with character? Kind of some weird quirks, some things you may have to fix, maybe some wallpaper from 1978 that, grandma loved during the Carter administration, but now, not so much. I mean, I know wallpaper's coming back, but that wallpaper from 1978, let's face it, burn it. It's never coming back. And then you have the flip side. Do you go for a brand new home that comes with an HOA? Very likely comes with an HOA that tells you where you can park your trash cans. All right. So that's what we're diving into today. We're going to be breaking down the pros, the cons of buying a resale home versus new construction. Why does this matter for you? Because your budget, your patience, and let's face it, your personality are all going to play a role in making this choice. And there are two very distinct choices. So let's get into why buying a resale home may be better for you. And 1,000% I'm biased. The two homes I've owned, they've both been resale homes. In fact, they both were built at the same time. The house I'm in now, the house you're seeing this on YouTube, this house was built back in 1960. My previous home, built back in 1960, cinder block foundation, solid construction. Yes, the windows are old, but we can replace them. So let's get into why buying a resale home might be good, and then we'll play with the cons. So here we go. First, you have charm and the character factor. Things that you just cannot find in a new home. Older homes tend to have those unique architecture pieces, whether it be the hallways. You may have some very ornate, not necessarily just squared off hallways. You may get the rounded edges, coming down the hallways that look like an arch. You're probably going to have some unique plaster work. Going back into the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, you had craftsmen, and not craftsmen in the sense of just a brand name on a tool. You legit had craftsmen. I believe now you would call them artisans, but craftsmen, people who did plaster work. If you go into an older home, you'll see plaster ceilings, and each one of them have maybe a different swirl to the ceiling. Well, in our area, you could tell who the plaster work was done by based on the design on the ceiling. Each one had their own unique crafted signature, which is something you don't find in a modern home, in a brand new home. So you're going to find that unique architecture. You're going to find mature trees. I mean, I would ask you, find me a brand new neighborhood where you've actually got trees and shade. There's very few. And hopefully in an older home, you've got fewer builder grade finishes. Back in the 1960s, Home Depot and Lowe's didn't exist. You didn't have flippers back in the mid 19s, during the mid 21st century. So or 20th century, excuse me, my math is off. Look, I was an English and communication major, not a math expert. All right. Thank you, Kennedale High School. All right. So that charm and character factor, that's so important. If that's important to you, this is where you're going to find that in a resale home, and you're probably going to struggle to find it in new construction. What else? And this is the thing I always bank on. I will go to the hill and say you will get a bigger bang for your buck on a resale home. Now, you might get more square footage and you might get more land compared to new construction that's in the same price range. Well, why? Well, look at the way new construction is done. They're going to go ahead and find a parcel of land and they're going to put as many homes in that community as they can possibly fit to maximize profits. I mean, go back, look at, think of your grandmother's house, maybe, even your parents' home. And a lot of times these were, single family homes. You had neighbors, but unlike brand new construction, you can't just, reach your arm out the window and grab a roll of toilet paper from the neighbor's house. You actually had to get out and go knock on their door after getting a little exercise and walking around. So you're probably going to get more square footage, and you may get more land compared to new construction. Here's item number three. They're in established neighborhoods. Everything was built around them over the decades. Think about it. The older neighborhoods, schools, shopping centers, places of business, community vibes, they're already in the place. And not to mention, you're not going to have to worry about any construction noises for at least the next 5 years. So those old established neighborhoods, those walking neighborhoods. Now, I've been to other areas of the country where they're building sort of towns within a town within a town. I remember we were down in Texas a couple years ago, and the construction down there is off the charts. And they're literally building these little town centers with homes and commerce and mixed retail all in. So you sort of get that old established neighborhood vibe in a brand new build. They're out there. They are there. And we're starting to see a little bit more of them as contractors and developers are sort of changing up. And as the home buyers and the consumers, are also changing up what you're looking for, what's important. We don't want to necessarily have to get in the car and drive 5, 10, 15 minutes to the grocery store. All that stuff can now be delivered, but we like some walkable amenities, maybe a pizza shop, coffee house, a little boutique. Those are some that we're seeing built in, but those established neighborhoods where the businesses have been there for decades, they're there. What's another item that makes a resale home maybe a little bit more attractive? Well, here's a big one. Faster move in. You're not waiting 6 or 12 months for a builder to finish your home. There's no surprise delays. So if you've got a tighter timeline, like right now, I've got a couple clients that have moved here or are moving here. There's too many R's there. Well, if you want, go back, fast forward through that spot, and you can remove your own R. But they're moving here, and they're on a tight timeline. They like new construction, but new construction is going to put them 6 months or more out, and therefore it doesn't fit. But we can find newer homes, newer built homes that's not brand new construction that's already here and established, and they're able to move in 30, 60, 90 days or less. So getting that faster move in. All right. So what are the pros? We got the charm and character factor. Okay. All those unique items that you're just not going to find in new construction. More bang for your buck. You might get a little more space and square footage as well as a little more land. What was number three? Established neighborhoods, schools, shopping, things to do, places to go within walking distance or short drive, and that quicker move in. Okay, what are the downsides? What's the cons? Your Adam loves the pros to this, but what are the downsides? And there are some. What are they? Here we go. Potential for outdated systems. Yes, this is something that you have to take in consideration when you're looking at older homes. You may have an older furnace. Now, if it's an estate sale, because I want to clarify a little bit of this, because there are cons, but they're cons with an asterisk. If you're looking at an older home that was built in the 60s, you had folks that have been living in there all the time, that entire time, excuse me. And what's happened though is those systems have outdated and they have replaced them. Every now and then you're going to come across a home, especially an estate sale, where grandparents have passed on and now the family is left with the home, or, the folks that have lived there are now in assisted living or they're living with family and now the family is now in charge of getting the home sold. Sometimes in those instances, you're going to have an old furnace. You may have an older electrical panel that's going to need to be upgraded. It might be 100 amps. It needs to be upgraded to 200 amps. You might even find an electrical service panel that's no longer insurable. Speaking of which, if you come across an electric panel that's got the screw-in fuses, or a breaker box, but the breaker box is called a Federal Pacific. These were unique looking. All right. They're both of them are now fire hazards. So if you go into a home like that, be cautious. Your agent, if they're experienced, they should know this. And if they don't, A, go find another agent who's more experienced. And then B, this is a chance for some education on both parts. Those are boxes that are going to need to be updated for insurance reasons. Also for underwriting, depending on your kind of loan, it may be tough to get those homes underwritten because of the outdated systems, particularly from a safety standpoint. Also looking at maybe it needs a new roof. So you may have some outdated systems on an older home. It's the trade-off. More maintenance and repairs. Here's number two, kind of goes hand in hand with number one, maintenance and repairs. Again, you may go into a home that was built in the 1960s where it's still the old wooden single pane glass windows. They haven't been replaced. Yes, there's still windows. You can still see in and out. They're functioning as a window, but one of the main functional qualities of a window is to provide insulation. And therefore, they're really not doing any insulating. And you're probably going to want to go room by room and upgrade those windows. You may be going into old plumbing where it's the old copper or old cast and probably is at some point in time going to need to be upgraded to PVC just to prevent any leaks. So these are things you want to be cautious of when you're going through an older home. Doesn't make it bad. Again, this is where you could potentially get more bang for your buck because if systems are outdated, typically you're looking at a lower purchase price and even potentially a home that's been sitting for a little bit longer because a lot of the buyers don't want to deal with having to do it. But if you're handy or you have family members and friends that are, this could provide a great buying opportunity for you with an older home. And then finally, less energy efficient compared to newer builds. We already discussed the windows. Windows should be on the newer side. So they're providing you some insulation quality. But with the insulation also means insulation up in the attic. So get up there. Your home inspector is going to be able to give you a really good idea of how much insulation is up there if more needs to be added. I remember going into old homes that were 100 years old and they literally had shredded newspaper and maybe not even sometimes shredded newspaper, just newspaper up in the attic for insulation. So these are things you want to keep in mind. Here's what I know. And going on soon to be 15 years of real estate, all these things can be fixed. They all just need to know who's paying for them. So all those items can be repaired. And again, taking those three cons is where you can be looking at a potentially great buying opportunity for you. If you're not afraid to tackle those things and go, yep, the house is awesome, fits everything we're looking for, but it is going to need a new furnace. Maybe it needs central air conditioning. That's the other thing. You may not find central air in an older home, but because of modern technology, most of those homes you're able to retrofit for central air conditioning. Talk to your contractors, talk to your agent, and have them take a look at the way that the house is done up. They may be able to take a look at that for you and determine if you can upgrade this to the full extent. So there's the case to be made for buying a resale home, and truly why I think a resale home is one of the best homes for a first time home buyer. All right. So there's resale homes. Now you're saying, Adam, I'm not ready to deal with any of that. I want something that's mine. I want something that's brand new. I don't want to have to deal with grandma or the old people that were there before. I just want my home. Well, here you go. Now we're going to talk about the pros and cons of new construction. You ready? Here we go. That fresh new home smell. Yes, that new car smell. All right. Something you're only going to be able to find with new construction. Everything is untouched. It's modern. It's exactly how you want it, and there's no weird carpet stains from the past owners. 100%, if that is what you're looking for, new construction is your path. Now, with that, there are some a little idiosyncrasies that go with that, and we'll get to those in just a few moments. But if you really want that fresh new car smell, you're only going to get that in new construction. Here's the other bonus to new construction. Most of the times, you can customize the options. You get to pick what floors you want, the countertops, what kind of backsplash you're looking for. Everybody wants that fancy new backsplash that they can show off to their friends on their Instagram account. Boom, I'm telling you, you can get that with new construction. All right, so there's number two, all the options that you get to pick because again, this is your home and it's brand spanking new. Another good positive to new construction is there's typically fewer immediate repairs. Why? Everything is brand new. You got a new roof, new HVAC system, new appliances. All that equals peace of mind and hopefully fewer emergency expenses. There's always the rule of buying a new home that welcome to home ownership because not, Murphy's Law, there's always going to be a repair. There's always going to be something that pops up when you're buying a new home. But when you're buying a new construction home, there should be less of that, less surprises. And the other good part of that is when you're buying new construction, oftentimes that new construction home comes with a 1 year builder warranty, meaning anything that happens during that first year, as long as it falls within their guidelines, which most builders, it's a pretty wide list, is able to be repaired during that first year of home ownership, including, anything from HVAC furnace issues all the way to nail pops. So if there's been any shifting in the home as the home has been settling that first year, most of the time that builder warranty is going to cover that. But again, if you're pursuing new construction, that's a question to have with the builder. So fewer immediate repairs, it's a huge one. Number four, energy efficiency, a big one. We talked about energy efficiency in old homes and resale homes. New homes, they're built with the best insulation, the best insulated windows, and a lot of times with the smart home tech. Maybe it's not a Google Nest or Google Home or, some of the other name brands that are out there that we all know from seeing. But normally, especially when it comes to the thermostat, that thing is right on and they're super high efficient to lower your utility bills. And if anything, yes, you can afford the mortgage, yes, you're affording the taxes, but no one likes surprises when it comes to their electric, gas, or water. So the more efficient those systems are running, the lower those bills are going to be, and that does make a dramatic difference when it comes to home ownership. So before we get into the downsides, let's again recap the positives to new construction. It's that new home smell, that new car smell. You get to customize the options that are in the home. You get to pick how this home is going to look for you. There's fewer immediate repairs because everything's brand new and they're extremely energy efficient. At least they should be. Now, what are the downsides? What are the detractors to new home construction? All right, the big one, and this is where new home construction typically doesn't work for everybody, and that is the sticker shock, both in the price as well as the price or upgrades. Because if you're, and I'm going to handle new construction here for this instance in two ways. One, you have the new home communities where they've got a model home and you go in toward the model home and you're like, oh, I like this. And then the builder rep will go, okay, here's the available lots that are available. Which one do you want? And then here's the models that we have available that we can build. And then you're picking that out. They all have a base model, just like a car. They all have a base model, but then any upgrades you choose to make, you're going to pay a builder premium for those. Trust me, the price that the builder charges you for handles on the cabinets in your kitchen compared to what you can get them for at Lowe's or Home Depot, dramatically different. I've got a gentleman now, him and his wife, they're relocating here from Ohio. They're buying new construction. In fact, they're wrapping up the new construction next week. And there's some changes he wants to make. And he's like, well, can they do this, 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 and this? And I'm like, they can, but I can tell you, you're going to pay 2 to 3 times as much for the builder to do them than once you got here and you had a local contractor do those things for you. The upgrades, the premium you're going to pay is by far and away way higher with the builder in that community than getting with a contractor afterwards, after the fact, and having those upgrades made. Or sometimes, like in the case of drawer pulls, you can do a screwdriver and a trip to Lowe's or Home Depot, and you can do them yourself. So keep an eye on your upgrades because very quickly you're going to have $50,000 worth of upgrades and all of a sudden go, wait a minute, I don't think we can afford this house now. We just took it out of our price range. So that's the first way of new construction. The second way is custom new construction, where you're actually going out, finding the lot that you want to build on, meeting with the builder, and then designing a custom home. Not that's a model, it is a custom to you all the way around. Now, if you're doing that, your budget's usually higher than the average home buyer to begin with. And just know that every time you make a change, an alteration, or an upgrade, there's going to be typically be a price tag associated with that. So something you want to be cognizant of with new construction is those costs. So again, first con to new construction is going to be that sticker shock, one on the price, and then secondly on those upgrades. Number two, the potential for construction delays. A resale home, it's there. It's been there. It's been established. It's not going anywhere. But when they're building a home, let's face it, weather, supply chain issues, labor, all those things affect when that home's able to be done. If we have a whole string of rainy days and they're still working on trying to get the foundation and the footers poured, can't do it if it's bad weather. Same thing if it's cold and there's painting to be done on the outside. Paint doesn't apply in freezing temperatures. They've got to wait till it warms up so that paint will actually stick to the outside. Now, a lot of times it's siding, but still, you got to keep in mind that there are times with new construction that there can be delays, and especially with supply chain. Can they get material? Can they get lumber? Can they get all the plumbing issues? Can they get the labor and the construction crew to get the job done? So know that there could be potential construction delays with new build. And then again, these are often being built in areas where there isn't anything. They're going into an area where it's just land. And there's not that established neighborhood. Remember, one of the pros to a resale is you're typically buying in an established neighborhood. Here, there's not. So therefore, You may have to drive a little bit further to get to the grocery store, to get to the coffee shop, to get to the pizza shop. So there's going to be fewer established amenities. You're not going to have the old school community where everything's there. It will be eventually, but currently with new construction, a lot of times they're not. Now, you heard me mention before, there are some communities or some areas where they're building those. I know there's one just north of me up in the Mechanicsburg area where it was a master plan where they had the entire neighborhood laid out where they had townhomes and single family homes built, but then they also built in some local stores and some boutiques and coffee shops and that in the neighborhood that was part of the planned build. So again, these are some of the things you've got to keep in mind with what's important. So resale, new construction. After that, which how are you feeling? We're not done yet, but you've got a little bit more food for thought. So, next piece of this are your financial and lifestyle considerations. Which one is going to be better for your budget? Again, going into a home, you can get all tied up in the emotions. And I always tell folks when you're buying a home, it's 90% emotion, 10% financial. When you're selling a home, it's the opposite. It's 90% a math problem, financial, and 10% emotional. So you want to be able to balance that. Are you okay with a little DIY and charm, or do you want turnkey convenience? That's important. And by all means, and I tell my buyers this all the time, when you're looking at a resale home and there's some projects to be done, you don't have to eat the elephant all at once. You know, the old saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. If it's got old windows, you don't need to replace all the windows at once. Tackle it room by room if budget is an issue. I mean, if you've got all the money in the world, do whatever you want. But most folks in my orbit, that's not their case. So therefore, you tackle it one piece at a time. There's nothing that says when you move in, all these things got to be done at once. I know some folks hate construction going on in their house. They hate projects happening and they want it all done. And if you've got the means to do that, I'm not discouraging you. I'm just talking for you if you're going, hey, Adam, I can afford the house, but I can't afford $20,000, $30,000 off the bat to completely rehab the house. You're who I'm talking to. So be okay with a little DIY and charm. And if not, and you want that turnkey convenience, then you're probably looking at new construction. Here's the other side of it. How important is location to you? New builds often mean expanding suburbs, where the resale homes mean existing neighborhoods. And we've talked about this now a few times. If you like to be closer, I've got folks now who live a little further out, and one of their key items that they want for their new home, their next home, they're empty nesters now, is they like to be within walking distance of things to do, which means we're now pulling back and looking at older established homes, which is perfectly cool. The other thing you've got to consider with part of your finances, but more lifestyle. Are you cool with an HOA? That's a big one. You either love them or you hate them. I'm on the latter side. I'm not a fan of HOAs myself. I know the role they play, and they can have some good, but we also know Karens exist and Kens. And so be prepared. If you're good with an HOA and you're like, yeah, I want an HOA, I like my neighborhood, I like my home to look a certain way, and I'm good with the upkeep, and I'm really there to live. And I really don't plan on doing a whole lot of exterior renovations and a lot of projects, then maybe an HOA is perfectly cool for you. But if you want that freedom to paint your house neon pink, if the mood strikes, then by God, stay the hell away from an HOA. So that's the things you have to consider because most homes, most new construction, they're in HOAs. And one of the primary reasons is for wastewater management treatment or wastewater management and runoff. They've got to form an HOA in order to have the funds available for like the retention pond and putting in wastewater. So and runoff. So most of them are going to have an HOA. It's rare to come across new construction unless you're doing one off where you're picking the lot, the builder, and doing custom. Then probably an HOA is not there. But if you're buying new construction in a neighborhood, then you're more than likely looking at an HOA. So weigh off those feelings. Some HOAs are really intense. And if you fart on a Tuesday at 3 o'clock, they'll send you a warning. Other HOAs could care less. It's really just there to have funds to take care of, snow plowing and making sure the common areas get mowed. So some of them are rather relaxed and cool. Some of them are really uptight. So be aware of that when you're going out and if you're looking at new construction or newer construction. So it's a lot to take in. Resale, new homes. Do I want turnkey? Am I okay with doing a little DIY? These are questions you're going to need to answer. And if it's you and a spouse or you and a partner, then you're going to have to answer these questions and go, which one's right? Here's the deal. There is no right answer. It's what fits your lifestyle, your patience level, and your willingness to deal with renovations or dealing with the builder's timeline. That's what's important. Again, if we're looking at resale homes, you're going to get the charm. You're going to get those unique characteristics. But you're also more than likely looking at some repairs and some DIY. When we're looking at new construction, man, that thing it sparkles. It's brand new. No one's ever been there except you. So which can be an upside. You get to make that home yours before it's ever anybody else's. And you're also not having to deal with any repairs, probably for quite a few years. So again, there's pros and cons to both. I think going back and looking at some of my past clients where they initially were looking at new construction, and it's no, we got to have a new construction. I want my own house. Want my own house. I don't want anybody else to be there. And we started looking at new construction, and then they were looking at just the financial aspect of it, and they're like, wait a minute. We're paying builder premium for everything. I mean, to do new construction, this was a couple years ago. The price of it was around 450,000 for new construction. And I said, well, what if I could find you a newer home, similar amenities, that you're not paying all the builder premium? And sure enough, we were able to find a home that was about 10 years old. First owner was moving out. They were making that first transition. They were moving out, and sure enough, we found everything they were looking for about $30,000 less. And again, with really no harm, no serious repairs that we were going to have to deal with. So if you like new construction but don't want to have to deal with 1970s wallpaper, go back a couple years. The average number for folks, buying and selling, every 5 to 7 years, someone's selling their house. In a newer community, that number tends to be on an even quicker time frame because I know for around here, there's a lot of relocations that happen. In fact, there's a new community that they just built 5 years ago, and they're already starting to see the first wave of folks moving in and out of that community. So just be careful with that, or be mindful of it is maybe the best way I can put it. So, all right, we got resales, we got new construction, we got classy, unique, characteristic features versus new car smell. If you've got questions, send me a message right here. I'm happy to answer them for you. Before we go, I haven't done this in a while. Tales from the House, and I was sharing this story with somebody the other day, and I'm like, oh my God, I've got to tell this story. So, Tales of the House. So, talking about unique features in older homes. So, this goes back to 2012. Had a couple, they were out looking at a home, I'm not sure they're even still together. It was a very tense experience with those two. And we were out looking at homes, and we happened to be out in an area of York County called Brogue. And we went down this lane, and it was a foreclosure. And by the way, in a couple episodes, we're going to be talking about foreclosures and short sale. But anyway, we went and we looked at this foreclosure, and it was a foreclosed double wide. Yeah, a double wide, mobile home, uh, sort of in the middle of nowhere. It was back this uh, stone lane about half a mile, and it's sitting back there, and you can see the weeds overgrowing it and all that. And we go into the house, and we're walking through, and I get into the second primary or the secondary bedroom, one of the secondary. It was a three-bedroom. The second bedroom had a larger closet in it, but in that larger closet was another closet with a hole in it that had a lock. And I'm like, wait a minute. They don't build these with a closet inside of a closet with a lock. Immediately, the red flags, danger, danger, is going off in my head. And so we're talking. I'm like, hey, they don't make them like this. And so we continue walking through the home, and we get out back into the living room, and I can see over by the side entrance of the house. There is, you can see where carpet had been cut. Carpet was still there, but you can see where a square had been cut into the carpet. So I just happened to walk over, and I pulled on that carpet, and it just pulled right away. And it was basically hiding a trap door. Opened up the door, and down below there was basically a stash house, was meth and supplies to make more meth. Yeah, that's right. This was the Breaking Bad house. So again, when looking at older homes, you never know what you're going to find. So in this instance, we actually found the meth house inside of a double wide. I said, look, I don't think these are supposed to come with the house because the look on their face was like, oh my God, what the hell do we do? And I'm like, well, what we do is we're leaving this house. And I happen to have a friend of mine who's a cop. I'm going to call him and let him know what's here, what we found, and let them deal with it. So that's exactly what we did. So anyway, you never know what you're going to find and come across when you're out looking at homes, especially older homes. You see, these are the things you don't find at new homes. New homes are boring. Old homes, that's when you can find some really fun stuff. So all right. Again, if you're ready to get started, send me a message. Don't forget, please like and subscribe. That truly helps the algorithms and helps continue to build this First Time Keys podcast and allow us to do so much more. And if you're ready to get started, send me a message. Let me connect you with a great agent, and let's get you out there. Next time on the show, we've got new first-time home buyers. They just bought just a few months ago. They're going to share their story and why some amenities they didn't know came with the house. All right. This has been Adam McAllister. This is the First Time Keys podcast. Thank you. Thank you for being here, guys. I'll see you next time. See ya.